Okay, we're working with complex numbers. This is 2.4, page 2. Hopefully you've seen page 1 and taken the notes. Weren't too many notes on the first page, but reminder on that front page, you're responsible for having the notes that I've placed on there in your final packet that you turn in. So here we go. Perform the operation and write the results in standard form. Multiplying into this is a complex number times -6. It's exactly what you think you would do. We just distribute. We get -30. Let's not make the most common algebra mistake. Negative times negative. I always do that. I always take care of the sign first. I don't worry about 6 and 3 multiplying to be 18. Negative times negative, positive. 6 times 3, 18 with a single I, and we're done. Again, we don't worry about the I. We treat the I just like it's X unless we end up with a squared. The other thing that works in complex numbers is if we have a square root of a negative, then I's are involved there. So we treat this just like it's X, and we FOIL, and we get 12 minus 18I minus 4I and plus 6I squared, and there it is right there. This is 12 minus 22i's, just treat it like it's an X, but if I is squared, that's -1, so this is 6 times -1 minus 6. Combine the real parts, 12 minus 6, 6, and there's a minus 22i. Terrible minus sign, and there we have it. So we got a little bit of a mess here, but lots of times I'll say this. We talked about FOIL here. When you have complex numbers, you might want to FLOY them. Look what that would do for us. We'd have our firsts 12, we'd have our lasts plus 6i squared would group, because plus 6i squared is going to become a real number. You don't have to do that, but it's certainly worth considering. So here we have conjugates, which we're going to talk about in 44 through 50, make our job a little bit easier, but I'm actually going to recognize complex numbers. I'm going to FLOY. First times first, 3. Multiply the last next, plus times minus minus, square root of 15 times square root of 15, 15. I times I squared. Outsides, I get minus square root of 45i. Insides, I get plus square root of 45 times I. And of course I could take a 9 out of these, make it 3 square root of 5, 3 square root of 5, but we don't have to because they cancel. So the conjugate is going to work for us, canceling here. So this is 3 minus 15. I squared is -1, or 3 plus 15. We get 18, and that's correct answer, but they do ask us for, we want this in standard form. The standard form of the complex number that we're working on would be plus 0i. And I would not mind if you just left that as 18, but I think our answer key is going to have that as 18 plus 0i. And here's the common mistake, and we make it in different cases. If I just have, say, 3 plus x squared, you don't have to write this down, just a sidebar. I will see people go 9 plus x squared, and hopefully you all see where that comes from, and more importantly, hopefully you all understand it's not correct. We have to FOIL this, so you might want to do this. 5 minus 4i times 5 minus 4i, and perhaps instead of FOIL we would FLOY it. Let's FLOY it. Firsts 25, lasts plus 16i squared, outsides minus 20i, insides minus 20i, and we get 25, I squared is negative, minus 16, I squared is -1, we have minus 40 i's. So for final answer, 9 minus 40 I. Now, worth showing you at this time, on your calculator, this little blue I above decimal point, and blue, of course, it's color-coded with this second button, second decimal point gives me I. And it actually treats it that way on your calculator. So I'm going to go ahead and go to number 40. I'm going to enter 40. 5 minus 4 second decimal point, there's my I, squared, and check this out. So it's really hard to believe you're going to be in an environment working with imaginary numbers where you wouldn't have access to your calculator. But for this one assignment, we're going to show the work with the exception of problems a little bit later. So in 44 through 50, we're to write the complex conjugate. We know what complex conjugate, or we know what conjugates are. The conjugate's 3 minus 5i. And since it's a complex number, that is 3 minus 5i. And then it says multiply these together. And that's really good news because we have the whole conjugate thing working with us. If we FLOY this, we've got first times first 9, last times last minus 25i squared, and then outsides minus 15i, insides plus 15i, those cancel. So we get this, which is of course 9 minus 25 times negative 1, or 9 plus 25, 34. And this is really just warm up for how we're going to handle when we have fractions and we have a denominator like 3 plus 5i. Okay, so the conjugate of this is negative 4 plus square root of 3 times I. Notice how I keep that I very separated from the square root. There's no doubt the I is not under the radical. I talked about that on the notes page. Make certain that that does not end up looking like square root of 3i. And we can't tell for sure the author's intent. There's no doubt my intent is this I not to be under there. Okay, so if we FLOY this, firsts 16, lasts, I get negative times positive, negative, square root of 3 times square root of 3, 3, I times I squared, and then my outsides minus 4 square root of 3i, minus 4 square root of 3i, insides plus 4 square root of 3i. That's the conjugate going to work. So this is all we need from the FLOY, from the FOIL. So that is 16i squared negative 1 times negative 3 plus 3, final answer 19. Now, if we should probably think of this as 0 plus square root of 10 times I, because that's negative 1 times 10, square root of negative 1 is I, square root of 10 is square root of 10. So now if I multiply that by its conjugate, 0 minus square root of 10 times I get 0. First times first, last times last, plus times minus, minus square root of 10 times square root of 10, 10, I times I squared, outside 0, inside 0, and I get negative 10 times I squared negative 1, we just get 10. Okay. Not much to it here. And pretty straightforward. Negative 8 minus square root of 15 I. Yikes. FLOY 64, first times first, last times last, plus times minus, minus square root of 15 times square root of 15, 15I times I squared. plus 8 square root of 15i minus 8 square root of 15i. Conjugates cancel. So this becomes 64 minus 15 times negative 1, 64 plus 15, $79. So should that assignment probably going to take you less time than what it took me explaining it. And yes, your calculator can do all of this stuff for you. Not the conjugate stuff. Actually, the calculator can do the multiplying here for you, though. I guess that's worth showing you. Let's just take a look at 34. Once I go 3 plus 5 second decimal point times 3 minus 5 second decimal point, and I put 2 plus. Scared me for a second there. Let's see, 3, and there we go. There's our 34 right there. So yeah, your calculator can help you. Anything on here where I showed the work, you're going to show the work. There's going to be a section we're going to just go straight to calculator with. Very good. Please ask questions as necessary.